let's talk about the differences for rent versus owning. Because sometimes people go, oh, it's just too much responsibility. It's going to be more expensive. I don't understand. Why should they buy?
Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day.
Hello. This is Jennifer J. Hammond. And I'm so excited to have Pat Cunningham here. He is our mortgage person, our expert, who is going to teach us about rent to own. Why do you rent, or I should say rent versus own? Not rent to own. That's a whole nother episode. So Pat, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the differences for rent versus owning. Because sometimes people go, oh, it's just too much responsibility. It's going to be more expensive. I don't understand. Why should they buy?
Well, I think they got to be ready they have to have some money. I mean, there's a common misconception that you get these pitches, buy with no money, you don't need any money, that kind of thing. It's possible with some loan programs, but you want money. You got to fix up the house. It's not. So usually what I see in our area, the DC market, is I'll see the payment on the house with taxes and insurance is typically going to be a little higher than your rent. No doubt about it. It's very rare we see where the rent's higher. It can happen, but it's an expensive market. So, but I don't know the rents exactly. I mean, know better than I do, but I think like nationally they went up something like 13% last year. So it kind of just compelled me to we've always done rent versus own analysis for people. But I wanted to take another hard look at the numbers because a year ago it was really hard for buyers to buy a house, and that's changing. At the same time, the rents were going up so much. So why? I mean, long term, it's a huge wealth creator. It's not a big wealth creator in 2 years. You need to be in the home for a while or another home, but you need to have that. But the difference between your forced principal pay down and tax breaks that you're going to get as a homeowner over renting, and we can show you on graphs, or I can send you the link later, is massive. I mean, you're talking about on a $500,000 house in our area, you're probably talking about, I don't know, a $500,000 difference in a wealth creation. I don't want to call it a mistake because there's reasons people rent. There's nothing wrong with renting. It's just the longer you delay that process, the bigger dent you put in that wealth creation.
Yeah, I think it's so important to look at the big picture of it, because so often people are just looking at the short term. And again, if your payment is, depending on what area you are, going to be a little bit more, it's important to see that. It's important to see what is the long-term goal here, not just the short term, right?
Yeah. When we look at the rent versus own, what we're doing is we're going, okay, let's say your rent is $2,800 a month. And we know it's probably going to go up about 3% a year. And what if this mortgage payment is $3,200, $3,500? Well, mortgage payment is you're paying back your loan. You're paying property taxes. You're getting insurance. You probably have mortgage insurance unless you put down a pretty big chunk of money. So there's different facets to that payment. But a couple of those, like the principal you pay, which goes up slightly every month, and the tax break you get, you don't really want to count those in your equation. And you could take those right out. Now you still got to write the check every month, Jennifer. So you got to be okay, be comfortable. But point being is if that payment is $3,500 and $500 is taxes, $400 in the first month is going towards principal, you really kind of have more like a $2,500 payment or $2,600 payment, which puts you lower than what your real rent payment is.
And what do you think for people who are thinking about buying maybe for the first time? What are some of the things that you would say that they should definitely be looking into?
I would try to think back when I bought my first house and like kind of what I was thinking. And I've always been in the mortgage lending business. So I was probably 5 years in, I was in my later 20s, I was getting married. Usually people buy for catalyst reasons, I would say, meaning they're out of a lease, they're kicked out, they're booted out of the parents' house, they're getting married, they're having kids. There's usually some kind of catalyst just to get us motivated. And I think the biggest thing is budget. So if you know from a cash standpoint, you can make it happen, which a real estate professional or mortgage professional should be able to tell you, almost to the penny what you're going to need very quickly. If you're okay with that, or you come into that or get gifted that, the next thing is budget. And that's what I remember being scared about as a first-time home buyer. It's like, we all kind of know ballpark what this payment is, but do we really look at like what we're bringing home every month after taxes, what we're spending on utilities? So we'll take in person, or when we do home buyer consultations, we'll take people through. We'll kind of have them do their own budget. And two things happen: they do the budget, and they go, "Oh crap, I should probably wait," or shift my price point down because this budget ain't working. Or they go, "Okay, this will work," and they get a lot more confident. And so I find that people that, have a good steady paying job around here, once they've done that exercise, and a few people do budget, but most of us are not to the penny every month, especially with online payments and things. You're not writing a checkbook and balancing a checkbook like we used to do back in the day. So that budget thing is a freeing exercise, or at least it will point you in a direction so you can make a confident decision. And, I think once you're past that, you can then be a little bit more aggressive with your home search.
I agree. And I think one of the things that as a real estate agent, I always make sure is that we have that conversation so that we know what your budget is. Like I always say, talk to the lender first, and then let's not go out and look at a price range that, again, now you're going to fall in love with something in a price range that isn't where you're comfortable paying that. And so I want to make sure that we don't break your heart first, because if you've had too many losses and too many heartbreaks, then you're not going to want to go out and you're not going to want to buy. And then you may put it off for 10 years or 20 years and you, again, miss an opportunity. So I think one of the first things is really knowing your numbers and again, taking that reality check of doing a full budget and really looking at where you're spending your money. I know that a lot of times people use the gauge of how often have you been going and getting a very expensive coffee from, your local Starbucks or, coffee shop. How many times are you spending money that you're not really paying attention to? And it's becoming something that you're not aware of in your budget. And then when you go to actually get a mortgage, that can be completely different. So there are first-time home buyer mortgages, right? They're FHA that have a low down payment. There are some that come along that are zero down. Like the veterans loan, and we'll talk about that in another episode, veterans. But what kind of mortgages would you recommend for first-time home buyers?
I would say you probably want to earmark about 3% for the sales price. Depending on the jurisdiction, there are, and if we're talking Virginia, Maryland, DC, there's varying first-time home buyer programs. So I'll use Virginia Housing as an example. Be in Virginia, obviously, for that, but DC has a program and Maryland, a similar program. They will do a no money down program. And so instead of 3 to 3.5% down, which is a more conventional or an FHA type down payment, they will fund the down payment. So you basically have 100% financing. It is a bit more expensive. It's a good program. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that if you have put some cash together, or you can kind of get a gift or work that cash piece out, it's going to be a little cheaper to put down 3%. So, that's 12 grand on 400,000. That's, what is that? 15 grand on 500,000. So those are the kind of down payments you need. You certainly need money for closing costs, which will help you get a clear picture of. We are in a market now where we're actually seeing more contracts come across with closing cost assistance from a seller, which was not existent last year.
Right.
We just didn't see it. And things are changing in the favor of buyers. I know the rates and stuff are going up on buyers, so that's a little stressful, but the other facets of buying are way better than they were a year ago. One of the things is the seller help for closing costs.
Yeah. And there are some programs, depending, like different jurisdictions have programs for that. Again, there are all sorts of restrictions. You have to know what you qualify for. But that, I think, is a great quick overview for people who are first-time buyers who are trying to look at the rent versus own. So I want to go ahead and let people know, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, you can Google my name and mortgage, which is Patrick Cunningham and Mortgage. It's called, my company is Home Savings and Trust Mortgage. And we have a few different sites, but one is pcunninghamhomeloans.com. But the easiest way is we've been at it for a while in this market. So we're kind of up there on the Google thing. If you just put my name in mortgage, you'll find me.
Perfect. Well, as you know, I'm always looking for the silver lining and the yays in today. So I'm going to ask you to say yay with me as we go off the air. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. 3, 2, 1.
Yay!